So we're going to collect the waste off the street. What should go into a landfill will go to a landfill. But what we can reduce and recycle, we're contemplating waste to energy. There could very well be fiscal implications, such as, for example, property taxes.
Increase in property taxes could hit Jamaican property owners next year to pay for privatized waste collection. But can the Jamaican people absorb more taxes? This is Cover Story Highlights. We want to thank all those who have already subscribed to this channel. Let's get after it. But before we do, I invite you to subscribe, like, share, and comment on the content. The Holness-led administration is floating an increase in property taxes to fund the ambitious privatization of waste disposal in Jamaica. The question is, does the Jamaican people who are having problems with how their waste is currently being collected be open to the idea? Listen to the Prime Minister speaking on Thursday at the opening of a new recycling plant in Portmore, St. Catherine.
Starting in the next fiscal year, the actual process of divesting the garbage collection will begin. It will take some time for it to be done because there will be significant contracting arrangements. So we expect that within 2 years that should be completed. And then after that, you should see a sustainable improvement in our garbage collection.
Those of us who are old enough would have seen this playbook before. We can recall that late Prime Minister Edward Seaga took the responsibility for public cleansing from parish councils and established zones across the island, turned over the function to limited liability companies known as parks and markets. Hence, the Metropolitan Parks and Markets, Western Parks and Markets, Northeastern Parks and Markets, and so on and so forth were established. This initiative, led by Edward Seaga at the time, to centralize public cleansing through these limited liability entities, were aimed at improving efficiency. However, assessing its impact on efficiency is subjective and dependent on individual perspectives. While the intention was to streamline operations, opinions on the actual outcomes may vary based on observed results and experiences within the communities.
Now, that is just, 1/3 of the problem. Another third of the problem is, where do we store our garbage? Right now, we don't have any landfills. We have 2 or 3 main areas where we dump stuff and we dump dirt over it. The chief being the Riverton City dump, it's not a landfill. And we have already identified a location where we will build a sanitary landfill. And quite a bit of work has been done around that. And then the other third of the problem is, finally, what do we do with the waste? So we're going to collect the waste off the street. What should go into a landfill will go to a landfill. But what we can reduce and recycle, we're contemplating waste to energy.
It should be noted that all these functions mentioned by the Prime Minister were mandates of the parks and markets. They were responsible to recycle, reuse, reduce, compositing, and waste separation, in addition to garbage pickup and disposal.
In other words, how do we make the waste the feedstock for another production activity for which there is value to be consumed?
So if value is to be consumed, this means that garbage collection and separation can be a lucrative economic venture. Examples we have seen in other countries. But we will get back to the issue of financing this venture later on.
Which would be moving it from waste, transforming it into energy. That activity will be quite expensive. We are studying it very carefully. It could have fiscal implications. In fact, all of this would have fiscal implications. Fiscal implications, what does that mean? It means that it will have implications for the government's revenues and the amount that we would have to pay to the service providers and who would ultimately pay. So whatever we do, we don't want whatever we do to increase taxes. That's not what we want to do. We have to be very careful in managing the taxation for the country. But as we improve these public services, there could very well be fiscal implications, such as, for example, property taxes. The question is, are the property taxes that we are now paying sufficient to deliver the services that we want? And there's a strong argument to say, I'm paying my property tax, but I'm not getting the service. And I would be very sympathetic to that point of view. But I would, without having all the facts before me as I speak, and I stand to be corrected, but I would say that for the level of service that would need to be given in terms of if we were to improve our garbage collection right across Jamaica, what we collect in property taxes would not be sufficient to run the NSWMA now. In fact, it is the case that the NSWMA is subsidized from the consolidated fund, even with the property taxes that we collect. That's a reality that you can't escape. So, as a government, just talking with the citizens so that we understand the magnitude of the problem, every Jamaican would also have to improve their payment of their property tax. That's the first point of call. That is, you not increase the property taxes, but you increase people's paying of the property tax, people's compliance. So, and I think that, the truth is that as people see the value that they are getting for the taxes that they are paying, the compliance would increase. So we are moving along in a very strategic way, trying to make sure that we balance all the challenges, but we're going to get there.
A lot is said here by the Prime Minister that we will unpack. You will recall earlier he spoke about the value-added aspect of converting waste to energy, emphasizing the economic benefits that can be derived from this venture. And we know for sure that in most industrialized countries, the collection and separation of waste is an economic venture. Yes, there's a real issue with property tax compliance in Jamaica. But even if we reach 100% compliance, it would not be sufficient to finance the venture or pay the private contractors to collect the garbage. And yes, we support the need for waste regulation and income generation from it. What we do not support is any hike in property taxes to pay for this initiative. What the government should do is explore alternate funding for this waste-to-energy initiative. Property tax increase will not fly with the Jamaican people. We will recall that coming out of the Government of Jamaica budget for the fiscal year 2017-2018, there was a significant increase in property taxes. And even with a so-called adjustment that they made, the taxes were still exorbitant for some property owners. And that was Cover Story Highlights. Tune in again next time for another edition of Cover Story Highlights. In the meantime, subscribe, like, share, and add your comments below.